You to tell me. Good evening, everyone. I will now call this meeting to order of council. I'll start with a land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. So I'll now call for approval of the agenda or any additions to the agenda. Are there any additions? I would like to comment that item 14.2.2 has been deferred by staff to the June 7th meeting. And item number 16, which is new business, I'd like to move that to being after the closed session this evening. So the recommendation that the agenda be approved as amended. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Thompson. There's no discussion. I will call the vote. All in favor? Is carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I will suggest that you can declare at any time throughout the meeting. We're going to move on to minutes of previous meetings. Recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting held on April 12th, 2023 be adopted. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Winters, Councillor Day. There's no discussion. I will call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Special council. The recommendation that the minutes of the following special council meetings be adopted. 5.2.1, April 19th, 2023. 5.2.2, April 24th, 2023. 5.2.3, May 3rd, 2023. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Coburn, Deputy Mayor Pringle. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Announcements. Does any member wish to make an announcement? I would like to stop at this point and thank all of senior management team for being here, or most of you. I guess we're missing Tim, and introduce Michael Benner, our new planner, to all of council. Welcome, Michael. Good to have you on board. Okay, we have no public hearings, delegations for items on the agenda. Any person who wishes to appear before committee of the whole regarding an item on the agenda shall make written application to the clerk by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. To register, go to georgianbluffs.ca delegations or call the clerk's office at 519-376-2729 extension 603. 8.2 for items not on the agenda is Courtney Sprout Bass Lake access. Is Courtney with us this evening? Is she online? Excellent.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome, Courtney. Yep, we can hear you. So you have 15 minutes to speak. So go ahead, Courtney.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, fantastic. First, want to say good evening to everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Courtney, and I'm a proud resident of 139 Lakeview Drive in Georgian Bluffs. I'm here today to speak to you about the reopening of public access to our beautiful Bass Lake. First and foremost, I believe it's important for me to convey that I am speaking on behalf of the following 11 Lakeview Drive residents and myself: Phyllis Augustine, Greg Sprout, Ken Bates, Thomas McMahon, Noreen McMahon, Darren LaFontaine, Stacy LaFontaine, Trevor Onken, Bev Onken, James Bilo, and Jennifer Bilo. The residents of Lakeview Drive have been a cohesive and close-knit community for several decades. We are quick to come together to solve a problem, help a neighbor, and plan for another year of adequately maintaining our little slice of paradise. During the pandemic, our community turned to one another more than ever to seek peace in a time of fearfulness and find support during a time of uncertainty. I'm proud to say that within the last 3 years, many of our neighbors have become close personal friends of our family who we believe we will have for a lifetime. As our community grew closer during this time, the lines of communication opened up more than ever before, and we were able to speak candidly to one another about how we could continue to improve our Lakeview Drive. The most important and reoccurring topic involved lake access for those residents not directly on waterfront property. To fully understand why this is such a poignant discussion, it's important to understand a very brief history of the neighborhood. On the north side of Lakeview Drive are waterfront properties with direct access to the lake. While the homes and cottages on the road are not lakefront properties, for almost 31 years, these residents had access to Bass Lake via 2 public access points. They used these public access points without problem or incident for many, many years. On Wednesday, January 19th, 2019, the township published a report concluding the following. The township has received 2 requests regarding the stopping and closing of portions of unopened road allowances in Bass Lake area that would restrict the public's access to Bass Lake, as there are only 3 locations in which the township road allowances front directly to the lake shoreline, and the 2 property owners wishing to have the access points stopped and closed have indicated their main objective is to prevent the public from accessing the lake and causing issues with disturbance and trespassing of adjacent privately owned lands. It's also important to note that the 2 property owners mentioned above, Lance Holmes and Donald Simpson, have both since moved and no longer live in the area. It would be an understatement to say that the dynamic of Lakeview's community has changed very much so since the residents moved away. In terms of access, please be advised that there's never been public parking anywhere on Lakeview Drive, North Bass Lake Road, South Bass Lake Road, Concession 17, or any other public road within walking distance or reasonable walking distance to the lake. When public access existed, there was also no signage to indicate where Bass Lake access could be found. As well, the previous access points did not contain a boat launch of any sort. We believe that the lack of public parking and the absence of a boat launch will help ensure that the lake access is used exclusively by Lakeview residents, as it was for almost 31 years previously. I want to conclude once again by expressing how important this is to all of our Lakeview community members. Before the lake access was removed, Tom and Noreen McMahon hosted their children and their grandchildren almost every spring and summer weekend. They described these visits as a break from life stresses. They have been personally devastated by the lack of access, and their children and grandchildren seldom visit the family cottage as a direct result. Longtime resident Ken Bates and his 12-year-old golden retriever Lincoln used to regularly enjoy a refreshing dip in the lake after their daily neighborhood hikes together. Being a master carpenter by trade, Ken was personally involved in the construction and maintenance of the previous steps and the dock, and he donated his own time to do this. It truly meant that much to him. He is eager and willing, as the community is, to do such a thing once again, if allowed. Lakeview resident Trevor Onken recently told us of many fond summer memories he had with his father and grandfather fishing off the dock, learning how to swim, and enjoying the water on a hot summer day. These wholesome family memories are exactly what Bass Lake was meant for. Tonight, on behalf of the residents of Lakeview Drive, I respectfully ask that you consider reopening public access to all of our Lakeview Drive community once again. As a close-knit community, we believe it is reasonable that we include everyone so that the residents can once again make those invaluable memories and enjoy Bass Lake's true natural beauty. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm going to ask staff Are we simply receiving this or information and forwarding to staff to bring back the background information on it from before, or what's the procedure?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe that would probably be the appropriate course of action at this time. It would ultimately result in a requirement for council to reconsider a motion. Yes, we could bring back a report to give the background information on this.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thanks very much for your presentation, Courtney. That was a wonderful delivery, and you make some really good points. So I think that I'm the only one. You were here at the time. Okay, so Sue and I were here at the time when the docks were removed before. And so I think it's great for us to return this to council. I just wonder if I should ask you a couple questions to help them with their report, just having some background knowledge. So, and I should say that Councillor Winters is also familiar with the property as well. I don't need to leave him out. My questions would be, so are you thinking of is the dock to go in the same place?
If I'm being honest, we are very open to whatever we are allowed to do. A dock, I think, would probably be the best and easiest route. The two neighbors beside where the path to the dock is have, they've talked about it. I know that at one point it was there and it was no problem. And when it was pulled out, the dock itself was just pulled up onto the shoreline, like in the path. So it's actually still there. We haven't seen it in a while. Don't know what condition it is, but I think at the easiest, we would just push it back into the lake where it was before.
So maybe that helps with another question then and so my next question was going to be, was the access intended to go in the same place? And I think you said there was a person willing to construct it who would pay for it. But I'm going to ask a different question so is the neighbor directly beside where that was, did you say they are agreeable to this process?
So I have spoken to, her name is Judy. She is, yes. And then we are the cottage with lake access beside the second place, the second point, which is the stairs.
So let me jump to another question then, because I can tell you that the rub or the wrinkle the last time was, and forgive me, people will have different tolerance for what is treacherous, but the access over the rock was determined by the last council to be too treacherous of a liability for risk situation. So if there was access at a neighbor's place or next to the neighbor's place, that would make this process immeasurably easier for us, because what the difficulty was for us last time was the adjacent owner to the somebody help me, the descent, the ladder, the wood, the structure, the person adjacent to that was not at all open to people on the property. And that's what was the challenge, because it forced people through the treacherous area rather than the easy access. So if easement was a possibility, if things like that were a possibility, that might get a whole lot easier for staff to write a report. So that was my question. It was really long-winded, but what I'm trying to do is save us sitting and waiting 3 months and coming back and staff not knowing what some of the parameters might be and coming back and saying, oh, no, it's still treacherous. It's still a liability. This is still really scary. So that's why I offer that.
No, and I appreciate that. First and foremost, again, I want to convey that we also too are looking for the path of least resistance with this. We don't want to cause issues. We don't.
No pun intended.
Truly, what I do know is a few things. There has been quite a change in dynamics in the community, even in the last 10 years. So my family and I, we only purchased the place in 2020, and we purchased the home that formerly Donald Simpson lived in, and he was one of the 2 residents that was opposed to the access points. And then secondly, the access point that is just like a path down to a dock, that owner, I believe he for sure has moved. I think that he lived in Judy's home, but it could be Joe's on the other side. I would have to confirm that. He, I know, didn't really want it either, and he threw brush and wire and everything else in the path. He has since moved as well. So it truly has been a real change in the community, and kind of why I thought maybe it's time to speak on behalf of my neighbors. Does that help answer your question?
Sorry. So what I would suggest is that we let staff look up the past resolution of why that path was closed. And I might suggest staff might want to go out and take an actual look at it because it is quite the spot out there. And then a report will come back to council for us to reconsider and look at things again.
So through you, Madam Mayor, I might rely on the clerk for a little bit of advice on this one as well. I think actually before we can even go out and look at it again, we actually need you to, I think there needs to be a motion to reconsider before a direction can be given for us to go out and do the process of reconsideration. I'm not sure.
Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, to council. So a motion to reconsider can be given under notice of motion for a future meeting. I would recommend that you do that, and then staff can take the direction from tonight forward.
Okay, thank you. Somebody's going to remember that when we get there. Okay. So thank you, Courtney, and you will likely hear from someone coming up in the near future. I'm just wondering, does staff need a copy of the presentation that Courtney has presented tonight, or do we have that already?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Courtney has been in touch in the lead up to this, and so I can reach out to Courtney directly if that's if anything further is needed.
Okay, excellent. So if there's no further comments or questions from council, we thank you for your delegation tonight, Courtney, and we will move on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we are on to consent agenda. Do any members wish to pull items from the consent agenda? Councillor Coburn, go ahead.
I would just ask us to pull the financial report 9.6, please.
Councillor Winters?
I would ask that we pull 9.2.1, the water reports from February and March for discussion.
Anyone else? Councillor Day? Okay, so I had 9.1.2 and 9.1.3 and 9.4.5 and 9.4.8, which are both the school bus stop arm. We've got that. So the recommendation is that Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda for information as circulated, less items 9.1.2, 9.1.3, 9.4.5, 9.4.8, 9.2.1, and 9.6. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Winters and Councillor Day. There's no discussion. I will call the vote. All in favor? Just carried. So 9.1.2 is the Grey County Warden's Golf Tournament. I didn't know if anyone in council would be interested in putting a team together to go in that, or a mix of council and staff. I don't, and I do, but once a year. We'll maybe leave that. If anybody's interested, then get together on that one later. Or is anybody? Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
I'm willing to go. So if there's people who are interested, either a council team or a team of a hybrid senior staff and council team, I mean, you could count on me to go, but if we don't, that's fine too. I don't really want to.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
I'm the same as Councillor Thompson there. I didn't sign up with going with the county, but if we need somebody to go or extra players to go, I probably can make it.
Okay. So we can discuss that one later then? Okay. 9.1.3, that Hawk's Nest. I think what they're looking for there is, because we sponsored, we have tickets. So they're looking for somebody to go, but that's next Wednesday night and we're all going to be sitting here. I would think so. If anyone on staff wanted to take those and attend, I think that would be appropriate. So we'll maybe turn that over to staff to see if anyone is interested. Perfect. Okay, 9.2.1 water reports. Councillor Winters, you brought that up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to the treasurer. My concern is March the 2nd, on the Oxenden report, it indicates that fire department used water from the Oxenden system for, I assume, fire suppression activities. Just want to know, to represent and respect the people at Oxenden, they pay for every drop of water that goes through that system. And if it wasn't a house fire within their jurisdiction, I think we need to look at sending a bill to an insurance company of some sort. Whether that was another house in Georgian Bluffs outside of the system or South Bruce Peninsula fire. It's something that triggered my mind out of respect for the people on that system.
I agree with Councillor Thompson. Good catch on that one. That's a good thing to bring forward. Thank you. Councillor Coburn.
Perhaps it's a minor thing, but I did notice one non-compliance with the Potawatomi system in the timing of the testing. And I know that, that's not under the purview of any of our staff here, but of all the systems we probably should be on top of in terms of testing on time, I would suggest that would be it. So I don't know if someone can look into that or ask why we were late on that testing of the raw water. That would be helpful.
Okay, then 9.4.5 and 9.4.8 are school bus stop arms. And the reason I pulled those is after being at Roma and listening to the gentleman who spoke there about what happened to his younger brother when somebody didn't stop for that school bus stop sign, I think I would like to have support go forward on both of those where they're encouraging the cameras to be on the arm of the school bus. So if we can give direction to have letters of support sent out to both of those. Do I need a motion for that one then? Okay. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Scholdice, did you wish to speak to it or you're seconding it? Okay.
Oh,
If
yeah,
there's
sorry.
no-
I was just gonna say, I was also there at Ogre with our mayor and Ryan as well, our councillor, and I can also say that the presentation that man gave regarding the school bus losing his, I think it was his brother he ended up losing.
His younger brother.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. I would also show support in suggesting the school bus cameras as well. Yeah, it was pretty scary to watch that video.
Yes, it was. Okay, thank you. And I'll call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 9.6, quarterly reporting. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, and through you to our treasurer. Thank you for this report. A question about the format. are the previous actuals, is that column from the whole entire previous year? Or is there any way we can get that broken down by quarter so that we're comparing apples to apples? I think it would be more relevant for us in comparing.
I will have to look at what our accounting software has for parameters to know if that is possible. We are still playing with the formatting of this in order to meet AODA standards. So please don't be alarmed if the formatting does change over the next couple months, but while we are still working on that, but I will see if that is a possibility.
Thank you.
Councillor Winters?
Thank you, and I'm glad Councillor Coburn brought this up. Again, thank you very much. This is exactly what I was looking for the last 6 months. But I did notice a couple of things last night, and I don't think we need clarification tonight, but one of the ones was a $44,000 line item for landfill covering. And I was a little alarmed by that because the landfill's been covered and closed. And my suspicion is that was more of a ditching, excess fill and things going into the landfill. It just doesn't look like it shows up appropriately where I think it should be. And the other one that jumped off the page was a $4,000 repair to the grader for lift arms. The lift arms on the grader, I believe, are for the packer on the back. So I'm just not sure what happened, that they would need to be replaced. Shouldn't be bouncing into anything. Thank you.
So through your chair, I can answer the first one for sure tonight. That is actually a public sector accounting standard adjustment that is required. We are required under PSAS to record landfill liabilities for the future possibilities. So it is an accounting PSAS adjustment that it goes to landfill coverings. It's the change in our liability related to the landfill from previous year to current year. The second one I will have to look into. I believe it was, we just needed to reinforce some bracing, but I can get an answer from council.
Thank you. And I had sent a list of questions to our treasurer, and I think she answered back to everyone on council. So unless anybody sees one of those items as needing to be brought up for more clarification, I think we'll leave that at that point, and we don't need any motions or anything there. Madam Clerk? Okay, perfect. So we are moving on to correspondence. 11.1, Andrew Stroud, proposal for backyard chicken bylaw. Does any member of council wish to comment on this one? Councillor Day, go ahead, and then Councillor Coburn.
I think this is something we've had multiple requests for and should be looking at. It's a way of improving food sustainability and local food and engaging agriculture experiences for children. So I'm very pro looking into the various municipalities that already have bylaws that allow backyard chickens. Of course, there's many considerations. If anyone's listening at home and is worried about chickens, then there's no roosters usually allowed in the bylaws, and there are stringent expectations in terms of how chicken coops are set up and cleaned. One thing I do want to take into consideration as we hopefully consider this is to plan for possible bird flu incidents in Ontario so that we're not surprised by it and then canceling just wholeheartedly banning backyard chickens, but having a proactive approach to coping with viral infections in the bird community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton. And so I think I brought this back to council about a month ago, or if time has escaped me, it might be a little longer. And my understanding was that staff was taking this away and bringing something back to us. Do we have an idea of that timing, or do we need more of a motion to get that report back? What do we need to do to make sure this doesn't get lost?
If I could comment first, I think the appropriate place for this to come back is in the updated official plan. So I would think I would be turning to our planner on that. And the other item that I think we were adding on to that was guard dogs that should be included in the official plan as well. So I'm not sure where we're at with that or if I'm on the right track. Maybe ask staff for comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and for you to the question. We are actually getting close to a final draft of the new official plan. So I can certainly meet with our consultants on this matter, as well as the guard dog matter, to see if there's wording that we can include in the official plan to drive resulting bylaw wordings.
Okay, thank you. Is council okay with that? Councilor or Deputy Mayor Pringle, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Carlton. Yeah, so it is a very good report there. It outlines a lot of things in there. My concern is where we're going to end up going with the free range chickens that are out there roaming their sides roads and up the road and down sidewalks and everything else. So this is very clearly defined as what a chicken coop is, and they're contained in a pen. They're not free range. So for me, I guess I want to know what we're going to do about the clarity of the people that have the free range birds running around. I can name 3 places off the top of my head here right now that have free range chickens that could be on the road, on the lawns, whatever. So that's the only clarity piece I want to see happen with it, to know where we're going to go with that.
Okay, thank you. And we can leave it at that. We don't need further direction, Madam Clerk? No, I would think seeing it come back as the official plan. Councillor Day, go ahead.
Just to publicly clarify, we were talking about livestock guard dogs, not home guard dogs, for anyone who might be confused.
Thank you for that clarity. You're right. Livestock guard dogs is what we're talking about. Councillor Coburn?
So do we have to wait until the official plan update? Or, I mean, I imagine we have all kinds of bylaws that we pass that then are incorporated. I'm worried that if we're waiting for the official plan to come back and that process to follow through, is there a more expeditious way of handling this one?
Councillor Thompson?
I have 2 thoughts. I was going to make a comment now. So I think, isn't this easy enough just to amend our current bylaw to exclude poultry from the definition of livestock?
Councillor Coburn?
I don't think we have a definition of livestock, and that's been part of the problem.
That's what I mean, like excluding poultry, so defining livestock as excluding poultry. Because I think our bylaw would say people can't have livestock. And that's the piece of legislation that prevents the chicken. So if we, in that bylaw, excluded poultry from the definition of livestock, wouldn't we? It doesn't do anything. My only second thought, though, is I think it needs a clarification similar to what our deputy mayor is talking about, to add the pieces. So, I mean, having said that, maybe in terms of expedience, I like the idea of a definition excluding poultry from livestock in the bylaw.
Can we turn to our planner for an answer on that? Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And to the question, I've actually had some experience in writing backyard chicken bylaws. There's actually 2 components. There's the Planning Act component that would permit the use of poultry in residential areas as opposed to an agricultural area. And then there's also the components of enforcement and licensing, if you wanted to go that far, under the Municipal Act. So I would humbly suggest that we may want to move this forward, and I can certainly bring, or staff can certainly bring back a report to council on what would be required to implement such a bylaw, and perhaps the best next expedient steps to move this forward.
Thank you. Is all council willing to wait for that? So thank you. We will. Now, do we need direction, Madam Clerk? So we need a mover and a seconder to move that forward. Are you going to word that for us? Councillor Thompson is moving it, or do you have a question? Go ahead, madam.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to council. Yes, I think it would simply be that direction be provided to staff to bring back a report on the implementation of a backyard chicken bylaw, or possibility for the implementation of a backyard poultry bylaw rather.
Okay. Everybody's good with that? Okay. Were you moving that, Councillor Thompson? Okay. And a seconder, Councillor Coburn. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 11.2 BDO audit planning letter, Township of Georgian Bluffs. Any member of council wish to comment to start with? Councillor Coburn, go ahead.
I feel like I ask this question every year. I bet Sam knows exactly what I'm going to ask. When's the last time we put this out to tender, and what's the requirement for that?
Through your chair, I will need to double check, but I believe 2024 is the last year of the current agreement with BD.
Okay. Does anyone else have a comment on that? Madam Treasurer, do you have anything to comment there, or we're just receiving that letter from BDO?
No, I had no further comments. BDO will be here later in the year to present the annual audited financial statements.
Okay, thank you. Motion to accept that correspondence? No action required. Thank you. 11.3. This is back to that Hawks Nest 2023 live show invitation. I think we've actually got it on here twice, so we can just move on from that. Perfect. Committee reports. From Committee of the Whole, the recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on May 3rd, 2023 be adopted, including recommendations COW 2023-039 to COW 2023-043. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Winters, is there any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are now down to staff reports. 13.1. Oh. Sorry, explain this. That wasn't part of what we just went through. This is added on. Okay. Okay. So council will need to adopt the addendum to the agenda, which includes report CSD 2023-09 and bylaw 2023-029 regarding the shared use of the Owen Sound yard waste facility. So this was the addendum agenda that came out later today. So could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Coburn, Councillor Scholdice, and I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. So okay, that's okay. We can be confused for a while. So the recommendation here is that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a cost-sharing access and use agreement with the city of Owen Sound to support Georgian Bluffs residential use of the leaf and yard waste composting site, and that bylaw 2023-029, being a bylaw to authorize signing of the agreement, be approved by council. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Day and Councillor Thompson. And Mr. Lobley, were you speaking to this one then? Thank you.
I can through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so this is a short addendum report and a quick verbal update. So the Committee of the Whole approved taking direction or provided approval for it to be approved tonight of the report around the shared use. You'll be pleased to know that the City of Owen Sound Council on Monday evening likewise approved a similar motion unanimously. On Monday evening, staff have worked quickly with staff at Owen Sound to prepare an agreement for that use. And so the addendum report before you today has no new information. It is just seeking the authorization to enter into the agreement, a copy of that agreement, which was formed just earlier today. So this has been a very rapidly moving file. And if we are able to get that agreement all signed off, I believe that we are in a position to be able to reopen that site at the end of the week for residents of Georgian Bluffs to be able to use this weekend.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Day, go ahead.
Thank you for your timely action on that one. There was a lot of public demand for access to the compost site, so I think that will make a lot of folks happy. I'm wondering if it's a good assumption or a bad assumption to assume that Owen Sound and Georgian Bluffs can have this agreement next year as well. And if there, I didn't see any, but if there needs to be any text about renewing the agreement on an annual basis.
So through you, Madam Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Day. There is some commentary on that in the earlier report that was discussed last week. I think the intention of both Owen Sound staff and township staff is that this would be an agreement which would be renewed in at least its current format, based on much clearer understanding of the proportional levels of use. There are alternative mechanisms by which this could be renewed in future years, and so we would be bringing back a separate report toward the back end of this year to share with Council the success of success or otherwise, we're assuming success, the success of the program as it runs through this year and what a future agreement could look like. So this is very much a one-year agreement this time, but there is an intention that this would be lead to an ongoing agreement for shared access.
Excellent. That sounds like there's follow-up and we won't be surprised next year the way we were this year.
Councillor Coburn and Deputy Mayor Pringle.
This probably goes without saying, but I'm assuming we'll get a press release out about this ASAP because folks are really anxious to start using this site.
Through Mayor Carlton, there will be a press release that has been drafted, circulated to senior management and council very shortly, and it will be released to the public by the end of the council meeting this evening. And we have worked on it jointly with the City of Owen Sound, and they'll be releasing the same information at the same time.
Deputy Mayor, go. Oh,
Madam
sorry.
Mayor, if I could just add a quick comment to that. Just on behalf of my colleagues at Owen Sound, I know the tradition is that bylaws and agreements go into a folder and they're assigned in due course. If this is one of those ones that maybe the clerk would be able to work with the mayor to make sure it gets at the top of the list. The insurers are quite keen that there are signatures on lines before that opening happens. So that would be really good if we can make sure that I have a copy of that agreement and can get it back to Owen Sound before Friday.
The only question I guess I got is, is it manned out there, Niall, at the yard there now? And do you need your driver's license or a way of proving who you are, just so people aren't surprised when they get there and guys like myself don't take my wallet with me?
Great question. And through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Pringle. Yes, indeed. It is staffed. Owen Sound will maintain staffing on site, so they will be seeking to restrict any commercial activity that might be going on in there. They will be looking for residential proof of address through tax bill or a driver's license or something along those sorts of lines. So you will likely have to prove where you're coming from. And again, this is for residential collection only. As I understand it, a City of Owen Sound bylaw does make exemption for people who might be gardening on behalf of neighbours, but they do need to enter into an agreement with Owen Sound. There's details on Owen Sound's website, which we will be linking to tomorrow, for how to go about doing that. So if you're gardening commercially on behalf of a resident, you are able to get an exemption through the city to be able to use the site, but it is for residential use only.
Okay, and I would just add that I was speaking to Deputy Mayor Gregg from Owen Sound this afternoon, and they are going to be recording data so that next year when we look at this again, we have a more accurate idea of how many of our residents go there and are actually using the site and what they are opting to do with the funds that we are going to pay and support this year. is they had withdrawn out of their budget some of the resources needed to grind some of the larger product that goes in. So they're going to use our funds toward that to put some of that back into the budget for grinding larger items. So it's sounding like a really good win-win story for both sides. So we look forward to having it carry on in the future. So thank you, everyone. Okay, now I am back to 13.1. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Well, and I just assumed that we were all in agreement. So sorry, my apologies. Item 13.1, which is the farm lease agreement. That bylaw 2023-027 be approved, being a bylaw authorizing the execution of a farm lease agreement for the property in the former Keppel Township, legally described as Part Lot 40, Concession 19 Keppel, being Part 1, Plan 16R 6460, save and accept Part 1, Plan 16R 9069, Parts 1 and 2, Plan 16R 9624, and Part 1, Plan 16R 11357, Township of Georgian Bluffs, PIN 37027-0309 LT. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Thompson? Councillor Winters? Is there any discussion? I will call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are over to bylaws. There are no zoning bylaws, other bylaws. 14.2.1 bylaw 2023-024 for the 2023 sums required bylaw. That bylaw 2023-024 being a bylaw to adopt the 2023 operating and capital budgets for the Township of Georgian Bluffs be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Sholes. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Bylaw 2023-026, appoint a deputy chief building official, Joe West. Recommendation that bylaw 2023-026 being a bylaw to appoint a deputy chief building official and inspector and repeal bylaw 2020-040 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Winters? Councillor Thompson? Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And we look forward to having Mr. West with us starting next week. 14.2.4, bylaw 2023-027, farm lease agreement. That bylaw 2023-027 being a bylaw to authorize a farm lease agreement with Paul Douglas Sutherland and Paul David Gordon Sutherland be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sholes, Councillor Thompson, is there any discussion? I will call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. There is no unfinished business. We have moved new business till later. It's on the other paper. Sorry. Okay, so back to this one, 13.2. I I don't have a 14.3.5 on any. Nope. All right. Okay. My apologies, everyone. 14.3.5, bylaw 2023-029, cost sharing. Access and use agreement with the City of Owen Sound for use of leaf and yard composting facility. The recommendation being that bylaw 2023-029 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a cost-sharing access and use agreement in respect to the residential use of the City of Owen Sound's leaf and yard composting facility be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Winters and Councillor Day. Any discussion? I will call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So no unfinished business. Item 16, new business, is going to move until after closed session. So we're now at notice of motion. Does any member have a notice of motion they wish to bring forward at this time? Councillor Winters?
Thank you, Your Worship. Are we restricted to just one? I have a couple. As a notice of motion, I'd like to bring up the speed limit reduction on concession 17 between Zion Church Road and Gray Road 17. I've been approached by a resident there. I actually drove it myself. I think it warrants some discussion at a future council meeting, so we can bring that forward. Appreciate that. And as the clerk's direction, I actually have what I call notice of discussion, a few topics there that I would like to be brought up in an upcoming meeting here. One is the Francis Drive completion. There was some work done there a few years ago, and the residents would like it completed. Concession 14 flooding, with the road being closed. I'd like to have a discussion on that. I think there's some options. I've talked to some of the local landowners last night. They're willing to assist and give guidance on what they think the issues are. Kemble drainage restoration work. I'd like to discuss that and when that's going to be completed. The Bridge EA, we've talked about the two bridges, one in Derby and one in Sarawak, and we're waiting an update on the EA status on that. I noticed going last night through the budget, 2022, we spent about $275 on noxious weed spraying. I'd like to talk about our roadside weed spraying moving forward. And then the one that I think we've all been involved in here is just this discussion on how we move forward with the unopened, unmaintained roads. And we're all getting requests on several of those roads. I think we need to have a discussion so we can move that forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other one then that we have will be notice of motion to reconsider on the Bass Lake access. Anything further? Okay. So we are going into closed session now. So the recommendation that Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 5:53 p.m. in the council chambers with the acting clerk and HR manager remaining in the room to discuss. 18.1, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, exemption B of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, staffing member. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson and Councillor Winters. There's no discussion. I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're now moving into closed session, so I'll wait for staff to tell me when we're ready. mind. No, it wasn't like that.
Not my problem next time. Thank you, Carla. Discuss for
It's this one.
All right. So the ones right in front of Bernie's have been filled before. Like I can see all the other ones that have been filled. So he's got like a machine shop there. He's just a little bit further east of Stevenson. Oh, I didn't know that. Really? You're kidding me.
Oh,
so that's the
never mind.
confusion I have is that I can see where all like there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes.
Yeah, because it's not all
But-
related, so that's.
And maybe though they have filled those holes and they're just gone again. But
Okay, read that. Go ahead.
who's on
Then we're gonna
just
go
one?
back and this.
Oh,
This. First then.
well, it could be they filled it and it's gone again. I don't
Oh,
know.
of course, that is a separate. No, I couldn't. I can't. I think I saw. You're like, I'm good. Read. Okay, we are now back in open session. Council for the Township of Georgian Bluffs went into closed session under open meeting exemption B of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. As a result of closed session discussions, direction was provided. We are now back to item 16, new business, CAO recruitment. So if I can start here and then I'll get everybody else to jump in. I think when we're looking at recruitment options, we need to determine interim first, which I think my take is that we would want to go that route, but I'll put that out there for all of council. When we actually start the recruitment process for a CAO, do we want to hire an outside consultant to do that for us? Do we want to have all of council involved in the process? Or do we want to designate perhaps 3 members of council to start the process and report back to all of council? Those are the options that I see for that part. Then I have some questions about updating the job description to maybe give it more clarity about what we as council expect. And I also wonder if we as council know what we should expect. Should we be exploring that as well? And as I've thought about this process, one of the things that has occurred to me is the last couple of beginning of the terms, our council orientation has been very limited. When I first started on council 8 years ago, we were given a binder, a 3-inch binder, and it was full of everything we needed to know, our mandatory responsibilities, what delegation of authority was, what we should be expecting from staff as far as that was concerned. All of our hiring policies were in there and what we should expect, which would go to how senior directors are hired by bylaw and a whole lot of things like that. And I wonder if, as council, we should look at that first before we create what our expectations of a new CAO would be, so that when we hire that person, we're very clear with what we're going to ask from them for reports and that type of thing. And does that set us up for more success moving forward with the CAO? So I will stop talking there and let the rest of council jump in, because I actually probably threw 3 different things at you. So any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Colburn.
So I'm inclined not to go the consultant route. I think we have the expertise on council to do interviews and make up our mind. That would be my inclination, and I'm quite happy to have all of council involved or a subcommittee of council. Either one is fine.
Deputy Mayor Pringle.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement there with Councillor Colburn on that also. My biggest piece, I guess, I don't want to see us rush this process this time to think that we have to have somebody in place right away. I want us to take the time, know what we want, and hopefully get the right person. Again, we've done the consultant piece since I've been here 2 or 3 times now. That hasn't panned out for us. And I think we do have enough people here in staff that can, or in council that can take over this piece and do it. I'm good with either way, whether it's all of council or just 3. I trust everybody's opinion here on the horseshoe, so I don't have an issue with whatever direction we go there, but I really want us to take the time and know what we want as opposed to being told by a consultant what we want.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Winter.
I agree with Councillor Colburn, Deputy Mayor Pringle, and Councillor Thompson. I think we have the expertise at this table. I think we can do it. I think we need to work as a group of 7 to do it. And I believe that, again, don't rush this process. But I think all of us need to leave here tonight and do a little soul searching of what you think, right? We don't want to rush it. We don't want to pigeonhole somebody into a position that doesn't fit. We tried that over and over again. It doesn't work. So I think that's the way to do it. But I think we all need to agree that we move in very methodical. We don't rush. I don't want to get into a position where we fill positions just to fill positions.
Okay. Any other comments? So I guess I've kind of heard both. Doing 3 members of council to start the process that would then bring a full report back to all of council, or include all of council all the way through. Overall, okay. So we're gonna have to figure out our next steps. Go ahead, Carly.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, to council, just to comment on the all of council recruitment selection committee. They would be official council meetings, just so you're aware. So they would be publicly advertised. And if you're speaking about the candidates, then they would be closed session meetings, and this would be publicly available. So just something to consider, that you are bound by that transparent meeting process as a hiring committee of council, because you will have quorum.
Yes, yes. Any other comments or thoughts? Do we want to then, as part of that process, take a serious look at what our current job description is for the CAO and have that as a first meeting going forward before we start putting it out there to advertise?
If I may, I would say as a group, you will want to individually come up with a plan, as Councillor Winter said, what you are looking for, what you see, what you think the township needs as a CAO. Then, after you've done that, look at the job description. Does that align with what you're thinking? Is there things in there that you're like, oh, I thought of that, but wait a second, I think it should be this along this line. Start with what you think you need, then look at the job description and see if it aligns.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Williams.
Homework.
Councillor Thompson.
We've got homework.
We have homework.
You probably have a template. This question for Chris. You probably have a template already, though, of what a CEO description would be.
Yes, we have a CAO job description, so you can look at that. I can provide that to you as a council.
Yeah, I was just thinking on the fact that we could use that as a template to know where we want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a starting point. Yeah. Councillor Thompson, you had a thought?
I don't think the magic is in our document, but I do think that Councillor Winters has a good idea about the things we need to be we need to be mindful about what we're looking for. And I would say we're looking for someone with, because I always feel like we come back to the same conversation where we're stuck with people who have not developed or held staff accountable. So that relies on being able to develop a team or understanding what a team is, being able to have difficult conversations, being able to recognize the balance of supporting professional staff who have the knowledge and acting as an effective conduit to council to help the vision and the professional advice to go back and forth. It's a very difficult job, but it's a very simple concept. I think we just have to really be mindful about what we're looking for. I don't think we're going to find a magic job description that's going to make the difference. We're going to get the candidates we're going to get with a general CAO, and I think the focus is going to be on we're looking at the right things. And
Okay, so we've made a decision there, I think, with what we're going to go ahead with. So Crystal, you will send that CAO template job description that's Brian's. Apparently we can now only have 2 on. We used to be allowed 3.
Yes, I will send to all of council the current job description as for the CAO. You can then look at it and we can discuss it in open session, changes, additions, wherever you want to manipulate it. It is your position for the CAO, will be your job description that you create.
So do we want to have that added on to, sent out to us all maybe now, added on as a discussion point on next week's committee of the whole agenda? Can we do that? I'm seeing nods. Okay. Yeah. I think next week's looking fairly full. That's probably why she's thinking, how long do I want to stay here? Okay. Think about that. So council has determined that we would like it to be all of council going through the process of CAO recruitment. We are going to start with looking at the job description and determining if it's correct or what we want to change or update in that. And we need to be planning some next meetings. That capture it or?
Through you, Mayor Carlton. So yes, just to formalize that direction specifically for your CAO recruitment plan being a hiring committee of council. So that would be your resolution that I would recommend passing tonight, just so that it's solidified that you've identified a path forward with the CAO recruitment process.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder on that. Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Thompson. Any other comments or discussion on that? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. We are now down to the confirming bylaw. That bylaw number 2023-0227 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on May 10th, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Winters, Councillor Day, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next regular meeting will be Monday at 5 o'clock with the Township of Chatsworth here. We start at 3 o'clock at the biodigester for a tour out here. We're coming back here for 4 o'clock. Chatsworth is supplying supper for us. And then we will have our joint meeting with the 2 councils at that point. Councillor Day, go ahead.
Just a procedural Practical point, is there lots of parking at the biodigester? Should we be?
Rick's nodding, so we'll be good. Yeah. Okay, one more motion to adjourn. Counselor Thompson, Counselor Coburn, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.